Welcome to Literacy Mindset, where education leaders from across the country share strategies for improving K-12 instruction today and preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. The stakes are high. Students are facing new academic demands, and educators are navigating an ever-changing educational landscape. Each episode, we explore the most effective literacy initiatives, innovative tools, and strategies that are reshaping education. Whether you're an educator looking to improve student outcomes or passionate about driving meaningful change in schools, the Literacy Mindset brings you the insights and strategies you need to stay ahead. This is where education leadership meets real-world impact.
All right. Well, welcome. I'm really excited today to have Dr. Brian Clayton from Hartselle City Schools in Alabama. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, Jeff. Glad to be here. We're coming from a snowy Alabama in January the 10th. It's hard to
That's
believe, but we have
right.
it.
You guys got some snow this morning, a couple inches. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
unusual for Alabama?
Oh, yes, sir. We usually have about one or two a year, but it's you have to put your meteorology degree to use when you become a school superintendent. You have to predict the weather,
Yeah.
so everybody gets a little anxious.
I understand. I understand. Well, really excited to have you join the Literacy Mindset podcast today. We're going to dive in, talk about some things relative to, reading and literacy and philosophies, as well as technology and just where things are at and where maybe they're headed. So, really excited for the conversation. But maybe why don't you start us off, kind of giving us a little context of who you are and what took you, or how you got to where you're at, and then a little bit about Hartselle.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm the Hartselle City Schools superintendent. I've been here for 2 years. We've had a lot of success, and Hartselle is a very tradition-rich system. I started out as a math teacher in about 30 years ago, and became an assistant principal and a principal, and served in many districts for about the last 27 years, and started wanting to maybe get an opportunity to be a superintendent. And I was obviously able to secure this position, and been a very exciting time for us. We've had a lot of awards, and just look forward to continuing to have our continue to try to tell our story and try to continue to improve. And because I always say, we can't really improve unless we know where we've been and know where we're going.
Wow, well said. Well said. Okay, orient us just a little bit. Where are you at in Alabama, and give us a little bit of size of the district and some makeup of the district.
Yes, so we have about 3,600
Okay.
students. We serve students pre-K through 12th grade, obviously, and we are about 30 miles southwest of Huntsville, which most people know as Rocket City, which has a lot of space and has quite a history of being a major cog in the space exploration for the United States. And so it's a very growing, dynamic area of Alabama. And it's just I've been here in North Alabama for 14 years, and it's been very exciting to be a part of it.
Okay, that's excellent. Yeah. So Hartselle's doing its part to raise up these rocket scientists. I like it.
Well, we're trying our best. It's when you have parents that are rocket scientists, it makes it very interesting to educate their children. And
That's good.
but it is. So you see a lot of robotics. We have a lot of robotics going on. We have a lot of drone teams in our elementary schools. We also have a little bit of rocketry going on as well. And so all those things are spurred on, and we try to do our best to support it. And obviously our community and our business partners obviously do a lot to support us as well. And that makes a big difference. And it makes it sort of unlike most of Alabama in North Alabama.
Okay, that's great. Let's see. I'm gonna go hard question first. So
Oh my gosh!
how does a math teacher who comes up, with an emphasis on math. How do you instill sort of a culture of literacy on the reading side of the house, right? Not the math side of the house, but maybe the reading side of the house. How do you, as a leader, instill this literacy mindset or literacy culture amongst the district?
Well, I think probably maybe I think the key may have been I had to work really hard at it,
Okay.
because I don't know that in the beginning when I was a math teacher that I ever maybe envisioned, you know, being a principal and being, I was a principal in 2001. We became a literacy demonstration site at the school where I was, and I think it just I began to understand a lot of things of how literacy impacts all subject matters. Literacy impacts definitely achievement levels, and then also how much vocabulary plays an important part in what, no matter what you're teaching, and how if you don't do those literacy strategies and those things that enhance instruction, then you're not obviously your kids are not going to achieve at the level that you need them
Right.
to.
Okay.
So I think it's just maybe was spurred on by inadequacy in the beginning.
Got it.
I thought, well, maybe I don't really know what I need to know. But then one of our math coaches, we just hired 3 math
Okay.
coaches. I know that really doesn't sound like much of a literacy topic, but we hired 3 math coaches this year in our system. And one of the first books one of them handed me was how really early literacy skills and early mathematical skills are not really any different
Hmm.
as far as how they start
Okay.
out.
Yeah. Say
And
more on that.
it was enlightening to me because I always you always want to put them in 2 separate
Right.
boxes. And but it was things that, as far as instruction into early levels and how strongly they are related, whether literacy achievement and mathematical achievement go hand in hand.
Hmm.
And had a lot to do with spatial skills, developing spatial skills as early as
Okay.
possible. Even the fact that when you read, your eye movements and spatial skills have similar
Right.
things going on at that level. And it was very interesting to me because I think a lot of times we do want to divide it out and we want to put it over here and we want to put it over here. I think they're in the early levels, they are very closely related. And I think we need to, I obviously need to learn more about it, but she, her name is Beth Balch, and she's one of
Okay.
our math coaches,
That's
and
great.
she's very passionate about the fact that things that we do in early literacy are also the things that we need to do in early math instruction,
Okay.
and which I think they've been working really hard on. We have 3 now. Of course, we have a numeracy act in the state of
Okay.
Alabama, and we also have the literacy act in the state of Alabama. So the numeracy act has not been implemented, but the literacy act is in this year is our second year of being a part of it,
Tell the audience a little bit more about
fully
that act.
implemented. Well, that act says that a student, that it has some instructional components
Okay.
to it. It was developed by the state legislature about 2021, and basically says if a student is not reading at a certain level by grade 3, they are to be retained.
Okay.
And if you do not retain, we have a cut score on our ACAP, which is our Alabama test. And if you do not, if they do not meet a certain cut score, they are to be retained.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are ways that you can promote them, one of them being an IEP.
Okay.
But also, we are to run intervention programs in the summer in order to get that kid up to that certain level on that ACAP score, and in order to be promoted to 4th grade.
Okay. Yeah, that's
But that's a law and in the state.
yeah, and it's not an uncommon law now. It's found in a lot of different states, right? 3rd grade
Yeah.
reading.
Yes, sir.
reading, and there's a lot of research about what it is that it comes about. I love how you talked about though the similarities between math and reading. Like sometimes I don't think we commonly understand the similarities in how we need to learn reading. Because you learn to speak at such a young age, right? And you can converse, and so we may assume that a student can read or maybe pick up reading as easily as you picked up language, but really it sits a lot more like learning math, and that we need to be instructed on the parts of a sentence and a word, phonemes, those types of things become critical on how we acquire reading skills, and it's not too dissimilar from how we acquire math skills or science skills. We need to be instructed upon it.
Right. Right. They're a whole lot closer related than of course, being a secondary and trained person, they're a whole lot closer related than I ever thought.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, let's talk about the secondary side of things for a second. One of the challenges is other leaders that I talk to, especially with science of reading legislation, and and I don't like thinking of science of reading the way that maybe sometimes it gets pigeonholed as a political topic of the science of reading. But let's just think about it as like the research on how we learn to read, right? Like there's legitimate great research on there about how we acquire these reading skills. But it is tricky for a middle school teacher, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade teachers, when they have students that maybe are reading at a first grade level, second grade level, or maybe some of the skills of those foundational skills are missing, but those teachers aren't as familiar with maybe the strategies on how to help with that. What do you guys do to kind of help those teachers with students like that? How do you approach intervention at the secondary level?
Well, we try, obviously we got to know where they are from an assessment
Okay,
standpoint of reading levels. I think a lot of times, the struggle for most secondary people is, you got kids reading at all different levels. And of course, I know that's a struggle from K
sure.
12, and then you have a text, or you may be asking them to read text that is, might be, uh, reading level grade 10 or grade
Sure.
11. And so I think it's important first of all, for us to uh, have secondary teachers that understand that, if you're asking them to do things uh, that they can't, really do, and then you're asking them to answer content questions based on material they can't really read, then we need to start doing things like, trying to figure out where level texts are, and bringing them into the classroom. And then, obviously we need to try to begin, and we're looking for answers here. How do you intervene or with a kid in the secondary level or middle school level who is struggling struggling to read at a certain grade level? Because as you mentioned, most secondary people, they don't know
I don't know
how.
how.
I don't really know
Right,
how.
right,
Personally, I know people that do know how, but I'm just
right.
saying you don't typically have access to that a lot of times in a high school building or a junior high building or a middle school building. And so I think it kind of falls upon the grade or the classroom teacher at that point to try to figure out strategies in order to, I don't want to say circumvent, but obviously try to help a kid. Because I think too, then do they have dyslexia?
Sure.
Do they need a referral for special education? Whatever avenue you want to go down, but we've got to begin to assess reading levels and really see how far they are behind.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And so on that front, do you deploy um, interventionists, or you talked about math coaches? Do you have reading coaches that kind of help in that front, or how do you guys do it?
Well, all of our reading coaches and math coaches are presently, serving grades pretty much K through
Okay.
5, K through 6, and so we we're doing our best at secondary level, but it's very difficult for us at that level.
Got it. Okay. Well, you and I talked when we were talking right before this that you're a fairly robust technology district. You got one-to-one devices across there, and sometimes there are successful programs out there. Talk a little bit about how you leverage technology, how it might help in scenarios where you're right. We don't have the right ratios, or we don't have the
Yeah,
right person in the
yeah.
room with us, but maybe technology can help with us. Talk a little bit about that.
I think you try to do your best to find viable programs in order to make sure that we serve our kids where they are.
Hmm.
I think technology does allow for the use of different formats and programs to make sure that we do serve the kids where their weaknesses are. And then also, to me, technology has an amazing ability to get content to wherever they are. And I say that because, we, in 2020, now 2025, we've got a lot of things going on from the standpoint of mental health. We got a lot of things going on from the standpoint of chronic absenteeism that has really been troubling since 2020, and we're trying our best to work on those things. And a lot of times we do use technology in order to make sure that we serve kids where they are.
Okay. How do you how do you appropriately um, educate your educators? How do you get the right professional development or professional learning for your staff to be able to leverage the technology tools that are out there? What does that look like for you?
Well, I think it's an ongoing process. We began in the fall of 23 to have a system-wide discussion on AI
Really?
and what does that look like from a standpoint of, first of all, what were we going to allow in a system? What access were we going to allow? And we never really felt like that blocking it or doing those type of things were what we needed to do.
Okay.
Because my argument is always AI I don't think we can envision how a student in K-12 today will use artificial intelligence in 2040 or 2050.
Right.
I don't think we can comprehend it. I mean, and so why will we, deny them that? So I think, we started that discussion, and we have came up with some parameters, and then I've learned a lot from the teachers in that area, the ones that use it a lot, as far as using different AI strategies to develop instructional methods, whether you're talking about tier 2 and tier 3
Right.
instruction. And that we have a lot of teachers that are doing a lot of great things, at that point to address, a kid where a lot of times, a secondary teacher may look at that kid and say, I really don't know. I really don't know what to do. This kid, doesn't achieve very, very well, and they, seem to have some weaknesses and gaps in where their literacy instruction is.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times they resort to saying, well, help me, and then they, artificial intelligence, sometimes different modes come up with different tier
Right.
2
Right.
and tier 3 teaching strategies. And I think that's what, a lot of times it has developed into, is that um, we have different programs that we can implement, but I think when you implement them and how you implement them becomes the choice.
Almost as important as the choice of program itself, right? So.
Exactly. Because I think that, when you look at literacy, and then you take a kid, let's say 14 years old, that reads at a second and third grade level, what do you do?
Right.
How do you handle that kid in math class every day, or language arts class every day?
Yeah. I love that. I think that we've talked a lot about personalizing. You mentioned it a little bit earlier when we talked too. Just trying to find a way to make it a more personal experience. That talk a little bit about what you guys are doing, maybe with technology. I love the AI encouragement. Right now, how you're giving teachers.
Yes, sir. We've tried to encourage. I think technology to me obviously does, from a literacy standpoint, allow a lot more personalization than has probably ever been possible before because it's so easy. Um, and I think too, when we have a few kids that are still educated virtually, um, and 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 they sometimes, and then we have sort of a hybrid take on a few kids. They go to high school for a part of the day, and then they come to what virtual school another part of the day. But it's a very small number. But I think that a lot of times our high school has 1,000 kids in it, and a lot of times, a kid, they don't like a big high school. They don't want to be a part of it. It intimidates them. It causes them a lot of anxiety. So we have to look for other ways to educate them.
That's a great point. I think in my own children, I feel like 2020 just started. It was just a catalyst for anxiety. So so
No
so
doubt.
much anxiety on what they're experiencing.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure that kids are by themselves. I think
Fair.
adults have a whole lot more than they used to. That's for sure.
That's a fair point. What do you just stay on that topic a little bit, or at least tangentially? What do you do to help technology not be a distraction in the building? Think about a high school, the anxiety that can come with social media, kids being on phones. How do you guys manage devices inside of your schools?
Well, all of our environments do our best to kind of, they don't, when you go in our schools, you don't see a lot of cell phones. We don't have,
Is that by
no,
policy or is that by
it, it's just, they, they have them out, more in the high school. Obviously, the junior high, they don't even allow them to have them
okay?
out. We have schools in Alabama right now that are using those pouches and
Yep.
locking away
Right.
the cell phone during the day, and you get to open them up at the end of the day. Matter of fact, we have a proposed law right now from a legislator that will, our legislative session starts February 4th, and she's for eliminating them where they're not at school,
Anywhere.
period.
No school can have it.
Anywhere. And we have a few high schools in the state of Alabama right now that operate that way. And they talk about how their distance down, talk about how their engagement's up. And we've had those conversations here in Hartselle. We began those as well because I think, I don't know if you remember, sure you probably do, in September. I mean, we dealt with online threat after online threat. We weren't even sure where they were coming from. That we weren't, and and the cell phone just exacerbates that problem, and you find yourself dealing with that all day instead of what you're really there for. And so I think those discussions are moving forward with us as well.
Okay. So yeah, you're thinking about how do you limit the distractions, keep maybe devices
That's right.
at least the personal devices in your pocket, keep that at bay. Let's use devices collectively to learn together, but stay off
That's
your
right.
personal device. I like it. Okay.
And I think too, when you sit there and you're one to one, they have the access to the
Right.
technology, so they don't need their cell phone to have access
Right.
to technology. They have it, and so I think I read an article not too long ago. This guy did a study on the number of times a kid was alerted in a 50-minute class period, either by text or social media. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
There were kids in the room in 50 minutes that had been alerted 100 times.
100 times? Oh.
Yes, sir. Through text or through
just
social
some
media.
notification, some alert.
Some notification went on 100 times in some kids. And what threw me even more of a loop was the higher the grade level, the higher the achievement level of the kid, resulted in higher number of alerts. In other words, in the AP and college prep classes, if you will, the higher level classes, those kids were being alerted more than kids in other in the mainstream education, if you will.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and well,
I don't know if that's from affluency or
yeah,
what.
it's true. Maybe just access. That could bring up a whole separate topic for us to discuss some other time,
Yes,
right?
sir.
But
Yes, sir.
how do you? Well, what do you think then, as a leader of a district? This is where I like to give you sort of the platform to push on me and my counterparts and our companies out there that provide you guys, tools and technologies. What would you like to see us do better? Like, what do we need to help you with in some of this that you're dealing with?
I think that to me, from an industry or technology, and your people, I think that we need to continue to, I think you all have done a great job already, but just becoming more and more personalized about
Okay.
what we're trying, what a kid needs.
Okay.
And y'all's, the things that I've seen you all do over the last, in my time, it became almost down to a science of assessing the kid and then a prescriptive program of what's going to happen.
Right.
Well, in the beginning, it was just, you do this. Everybody does this.
Right.
And so I think as we move forward, I think that's, to me, the biggest challenge is because kids are just, they're all just so different now to me.
Yeah.
There's a whole much more diversity. There's so much more of a different backgrounds where definitely, where we live, because we
Sure.
have a way of attracting kids from all over, internationally even.
Sure.
And they just come with so many more needs. And then you throw in obviously the different backgrounds now of disability, the different backgrounds now of health issues that we face, mental health issues that we face. All that just, kind of at times, to me, I don't want to say, it just makes it more difficult to figure out exactly from an education standpoint what to do.
Got it.
And that's the challenge I have for everybody is, how do we continue to get better at that? Assessing where they are and then trying to develop some plan to get them to where we need them.
Yeah, I love it. We talk a little bit about a future in which teacher and student can kind of work together to co-create their learning path on it as
Yes,
get
sir.
students really bought into this. So that there's some excitement about what they wake up every day because they know that it's something that they really want to do. And I think that we're getting close to allow that to be really possible for teachers. So
Yeah. I always say, that's why they like they like the gaming.
they do.
It personalizes it. It's a different experience for each time.
Yeah, and we need to learn from that, right? We
We
need to
do.
learn
We do.
and try and leverage some of those things. Just real quick, I think before we wrap up, you mentioned that you kind of encourage the use of AI. Just out of curiosity, are you paying for premium licenses for your teachers, or are they kind of just going out using what they can?
We have looked in different ways of looking at different services, if you will. Pretty much everybody's using pretty much the basic level now. We do allow them to purchase whatever they like with their own instructional money.
Okay,
Our teachers get this year they get a $900 a
got it.
piece from a classroom instruction fund, and
So if they
so
wanted to
some of
do the
them
$20
have.
a month Chat GPT, they can do it there.
Oh yes, sir. If they want to, pay a company extra, they can by all means do so. But if we do, what we're looking at right now is assessing where all of our teachers and what they have purchased, and then seeing if it would be beneficial for everybody, for the central, for the
Whole
CEO
buy.
to do it ourselves rather than have each teacher provide their own
That's
version.
smart. Okay. That's great. I love hearing that. I think lots of districts are trying to figure that out and how to best use that right now.
It is, and and I always say I remember the beginning days of the use of the internet in the classroom, and I always found that we got a lot of smart teachers, and they will figure it out. They will, you know what I'm saying? They will figure it out how to use AI in instruction, just like they figured it out when we put a
Right, when we
computer in the
just put
classroom.
a machine in there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
No, that's great. And obviously, our job is to help facilitate that, right? How do we
yes,
make that
sir.
easier for
Yes,
them,
sir.
not harder?
That's right.
All right. Well, shoot, this has been an absolute treat for me to be able to chat through this.
I've
Love
enjoyed it.
hearing that. I'll give you one final question.
All right.
It's my wrap up question with everyone. I love to hear the future. Just hold that crystal ball. Give us a little sense of what are we looking at 5, 10 years. I know we said we can't even really comprehend, maybe 20, 30 years out in AI, but and it doesn't have to be AI related, but what do you think? Where are we at in the literacy side of things 5, 10 years from now? What do you see trends wise that are going to continue, or things that might just be a flash in the pan?
I think we'll see things that are going on now used at a higher fluency level.
Okay.
I think that our teachers here, to me, are to the point in, let's say, instruction through the science of reading to where they are at a level that, it will be almost second nature. It's not going to be a learning curve for them. And I think we'll continue to develop that. But I am very interested in how, whether you start talking about artificial intelligence or whatever technology you might want to talk about, I just don't see how we're going to be able to. There's no way we're not going to integrate that in a higher level each day,
Right.
because I think people, for example, I put in math problems to different artificial intelligence engines, and the result that you can get and the commands that you can make it do what you want, to me, I tell you what, it kind of infuriates me, because I remember sitting in calculus 3 classrooms at the University of Alabama thinking, I am as lost as
Sure
I
wish I
can
had that
possibly be.
place. I could just
I don't even know what questions to
type this in,
ask.
right?
And so I think, to me, when you can sit there and, I'm going to say this, I have a board member that's just retired as an IT specialist from NASA.
Wow.
And one of the most profound, and he's been there 39 years, I
Oh my
think.
goodness.
He remembers the day that they put desktops
In
in
their
NASA people's office, and he was in charge of
the
trying to figure
deployment.
out how to tell them what to do with them, what to do. And he looked at me in the fall of 23, and this is what he said. And I'll never forget it, because when he said it, I had flashbacks of being in a Pascal class.
Right.
And he says, Brian, we need to teach them English really well, because that is what they will program in.
Mm.
And I thought, because, I had these flashbacks of trying to write Pascal in order to make a program do what I wanted it to do. And that just hit me, I was like, oh my gosh, now we just tell a computer, write a
Right.
paper, and it does it.
And the
And
more clearly you can
then you
articulate
can,
that with words in the English
yes,
language,
sir.
the better.
Assuming that you know English well enough to type it in. But for him to say that to me, and I'm thinking, this guy has seen 40 years of
Right.
things at NASA where they are really rocket scientists. Um, and then to get it to that basic comment there, it kind of hit me. He wrote a book on artificial intelligence. It's called A Practical Guide to Artificial Intelligence.
Wow.
His name is Randy Sparkman, and he's speaking all over Alabama and about the use of artificial intelligence in the beginnings of it. It's fascinating.
That's amazing. Well, thank you
Yes, sir.
for sharing that. You've heard it here.
Yes, sir. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you've heard it here from Dr. Clayton. We'll be programming in English. We're excited to
Yes,
that.
sir.
Thanks for joining the Literacy Mindset today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe to Literacy Mindset. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for updates, resources, and to join the conversation. Have a topic you'd like us to explore? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.